Man, word travels fast.
Word travels. New Orleans is a very small town.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you, for coming, and thanks to my colleagues. Joe DeRusso is with us in spirit, but he has an event with his daughter today, and he can't be here. In light of very clear evidence that actors were in fact paid to feign public support before the City Council, this body has deemed it necessary and appropriate that we do a formal and complete investigation of the use of paid actors. Earlier this week, I drafted a letter. I think most of you have it. All 7 council members have signed on to that letter. It was sent to Entergy New Orleans to make sure that documents are preserved so that we can see everything that is available, and the public can see everything that is available, and the press can see everything that was available with regards to what we now know of a practice called astroturfing. Before I go any further, I would like to publicly thank a couple of community members, Danielle Faust, Mark Wynn, Monique Harton, Vin Wynn, and a number of other stakeholders who called this activity out early before it was corroborated, before there was clear and convincing evidence that it in fact happened. I thank them for being watchdogs and calling it out. It is vitally important. It is vitally important. It is crucial that this body aggressively and thoroughly investigate the use of paid actors in this public hearing process, because it is an act that can affect every single thing we do from development, land use issues, and on and on and on. It was a perversion of our public process. The use of paid actors was clearly an attempt to pervert the true purpose of public comment on matters before the council. This activity, based on my early research, I have not found a single court in the country that has deemed it illegal. But that doesn't mean that we are going to allow it and permit it in the city of New Orleans at city council meetings. I was hoping that, and I think I talked to you, Michael, about this when we were talking about it right after you broke the story. We talked about the idea of actually changing our public comment cards to require not just your name and address, but actually whether or not you have received anything in compensation in exchange for your public comment. I was hoping we could have those cards in place for our first meeting. Based upon notice requirements, it probably won't be until our second meeting that those cards have been changed. But that doesn't stop me or anyone else for demanding that someone let the body know and let the public know if they received anything in compensation for their testimony. We will not allow our process to be perverted with money and the use of that money to try to buy public support or pay actors. I'm proud to be joined by all of my other colleagues, and I would turn it over to them so that you can hear their comments as well. Council Vice President Moreno.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Well, first, let me just say that this is an incredibly serious situation, and it is our duty as the New Orleans City Council, the regulators of Entergy, to make sure that we get to the bottom of this and find out exactly what truly happened. Obviously, Entergy has given us a report with the findings of their own investigation, and we appreciate that, but we can't just take that on just Entergy's word. We have to do our own independent investigation. We will conduct a thorough and transparent investigation. We will be requesting a series of different documents, contracts. We will also make sure that we have transcripts of different interviews that are pertinent to this investigation. We will be bringing in a third-party investigator to be the person who does all of this. And let me just say this, that the collection and the preservation of the evidence is critical here, because that will, at the end of the day, help us determine what additional actions we as a council need to take. Let me also be clear that the evidence that is collected, I believe that that should be attached to the final report and the final findings so that the public can see everything that was submitted, and we can add as much sunshine to this process. I also want to make it clear that the procedures and the process of this investigation, we will make those perfectly clear to the public so that they understand all of the steps that will happen during this investigation. But once again, this is a very serious matter. Right now, Entergy is dealing with a very significant integrity issue, and us being the regulators of this utility, it is beholden on us to hold them accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Moreno. Going in alphabetical order, District B, Councilmember Jay Banks.
Good morning. It's clear that whatever decisions this council has made or will make, somebody's going to walk away happy, somebody's going to walk away not happy. Whatever decisions are made, there will be a winner and a loser. But what has to be pure is the process. Now, whether or not, whatever side you're on, we've got to ensure the public that the process is fair. And that is the purpose of doing what we're doing, to make sure that we can guarantee that moving forward, whatever processes we embark upon, everybody will have a fair and even shake. This is unfortunate that it happened. We don't know what the investigation is going to eventually lead to, but one thing's for sure, it is our goal to make sure when this is done, the public has confidence that we played by the rules, and we will continue to play by the rules.
Thank you, Councilmember Banks. District C, Councilmember Palmer.
Thank you. I just want to stay here and thank my fellow council members for understanding the serious nature of this. I stand in absolute support of an independent, clear, and concise investigation of Entergy. It's also very important to note that we're doing this on the eve of our first council meeting. And I think it's very important for the public to understand that we take this incredibly seriously, that we always want to have an open and transparent process, and we respect our public comment process. So again, I just want to thank my colleagues. And I would also like to say, on a side note, that I think we're all very tired of money in the political process. We're used to seeing at the federal level, we're used to seeing at the state level. We cannot allow it to come and impede at the city level. And I think that's what we're also standing here in unison to protect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Palmer. Councilmember Brosette, District D.
Thank you, Council President. Just a related issue to investigation. I would remind the public that we also have another investigation going on, and that is, at my urging last August, the amount of outages is ridiculous and it is unacceptable. Just this week, over 20,000 people in districts A and B went without power. The outages in Clearwater is, like I said, unacceptable. There was a resolution in August of 17 to open an investigation docket. This past March, we did an order to show cause, the Utilities Committee and the full council, and we will hold Entergy accountable. We will keep pushing forward so they could improve their distribution system and improve reliability for our ratepayers and our constituents. The status quo is unacceptable. Now to this investigation. As a result, and after doing much research related to this, and our process as a body, and as you can see, we are united here. I will be filing soon a legislation to require lobbyist registration into the city code. I'm hoping that it'll pass. We need to know who's lobbying the legislative branch and the executive branch. I hope to have that in effect by January. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brosette. District E, Councilmember Nguyen.
Thank you, and thank you for being here with us today. And as you guys know, the Entergy plant is in District E. And so hearing about these allegations as a council person for District E, it is extremely disturbing. I've always been about the process to make sure that it's fair and it's justice for all, and that we do use the process to hear out the people's voice. And so I want to thank my colleagues on the City Council to investigating this allegation. This is a very serious allegation, and I'm going to play a major role to make sure that we get through this process, to make sure that the public are being heard, and to make sure that the process is being transparent to all. So thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. We'll take a few questions. Yes.
So is the vote being reconsidered? If the process wasn't fair, are you guys going to go back to the table with the bids and the energy plants and all of that?
I think the best way to answer that question is the process was tainted, right? The process was tainted. There was a 2-year process in which close to 2,700 pages of documentary evidence were produced from experts from all over the country. It was tainted by the fact that it appears that actors were paid to come in and feign public support. So if we're doing an earnest investigation and we presuppose what our decision is going to be before we see the results of that investigation, then we're calling our investigation a farce. So I don't think anyone is going to say we are going to do X until we see what comes out of this investigation.
So then is it possible, based on what you find at the end of this investigation, that that's something that's on the table, or if not, what are the other consequences that are on the table?
Investigations can exonerate, investigations can convict. Everything's on the table. Michael?
Yeah, so 2 quick questions. So the addition, the new disclosure to the comment card, so are you saying that's going to happen, or you're still discussing?
That will happen.
Okay.
I think we're all 100% on board with that. I know Councilmember Moreno has been working with David to make sure that can happen as quickly as possible.
Okay.
I think there are notice requirements that won't allow us to make that change at our first meeting next Thursday. It will be in place by our next council meeting. And you can rest assured that there may be questions from the dais about whether or not someone has received compensation. And back to our conversation when you first broke this, compensation can take a number of different forms. You know, if somebody from New Orleans East or Holly Groves gets a ride in on a bus because somebody organized a group to carry them because they don't have transportation, that is very different from beer and pizza and $200 at Dave & Buster's. So we want to know whatever it is so that it can be weighed appropriately by all council members when deciding.
And then one quick follow-up. I had a couple of questions about the legislation you were offering. Is it new restrictions on grassroots lobbying or new regulations for grassroots lobbying? You said you were introducing new legislation.
Yeah. Jerry, why don't you come up to the microphone so everyone can get that answer.
Lobbying that executive branch, people come to the city council, people, requesting meetings.
Right.
We need to know who is being paid by whom.
Okay.
And that would, the registry would be in the CAO's office. But back to the question about the cards, on top of what Councilmember Williams already said, y'all know that Councilmember Moreno and I served in the legislature, and we have sworn cards, and we've been in discussion about implementing those cards at our council meetings for agenda items, land use matters, zoning.
Got it. Thank you.
Councilmember Moreno, why don't you speak
Sure.
a little bit to the card?
So, Michael, just quickly, and I can actually give you a sample card of what the
That'd be great.
legislative cards look like. But yes, we've been working on crafting similar language here on the city council level. So on the legislative cards, I mean, obviously you have to put who you're representing. And then at the bottom, you have to certify that the information that you're providing is correct and true. But at the same time, we will add language that we're still working on getting a final draft of about getting anything of value. Are you getting anything of value? And as the council president stated, I mean, it's not just about compensation. It's not about just somebody getting $50 or a gift card. I mean, but there are other things that could be valuable, whether you're getting a meal or whatever else it could be. So we're working on those changes, and I think that they'll be implemented very quickly.
Okay, so if someone, for example, got a ride to a city council meeting, that would be
something of
a
value.
disclosure?
Or a free meal, or additional days off, or I mean, there's a whole list of different things that could be something of value.
And then could there be any repercussions for not disclosing if you were compensated or not?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's really for us to be able to determine when we're in the decision-making process who's representing who. So for us, it's really an information type of card that we're looking for.
And I would love if we could disallow the use of astroturfing completely. Just because it hasn't been deemed illegal in any court yet doesn't mean that it won't be, because it is certainly a perversion of the public comment process. But I do think that the cards that we're speaking about and the questions that will now be asked will expose the use of this astroturfing to make the city of New Orleans a very uncomfortable place to try to engage in that type of fake grassrooting.
But do you face any sort of legal ramifications if you come in and you
Ask for
line the cards?
ask for honest answers.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not doing anything to anyone. We're asking someone to be completely honest and transparent about why they are before this body to give information. That's all.
But if they turn out to not be honest on the card, what teeth are there in those?
Well, you know, there is an ordinance in place, and there are council rules against misrepresenting the city council. And I believe there's a misdemeanor provision that is in place. But what I want to do is I think Councilmember Moreno mentioned, the more sunshine you can add, the less that mildew can grow. And so adding that light, that extra light of why are you here, what did you get to be here, can make this a place where you just can't get it done. So crowds on demand will have to go to another city to make money after this. Yes, sir.
Entergy has already stated that paid actors were used, so what's preventing the council from making a decision to restart the process right now, the voting process?
Well, I mean, I think it puts the cart before the horse. Entergy did its investigation, right? We're the regulatory body. We have a fiduciary duty to the citizens. We are responsible to the people that put us here. I'm not going to take somebody's investigation at face value. We have an obligation to figure out whether it's text messages, emails. I want to know what was out there, how long it was out there, and everybody up here needs to know that. And I guarantee you, when they're at Rouse's or Walmart, their constituents are asking them that. So we've got to do our investigation first before we can go further.
What's the timeline for the investigation?
I'll let other colleagues weigh in. I would like to move as fast as possible. I think time is of the essence. I think people want answers. But we can't let time trump thoroughness and completeness. I think we're all aligned on moving as quickly as we possibly can, but I can't tell you a date.
And for a third party, would you have to contract that out, or do you have something in-house that might be able to do that?
You know, I've had some conversations, and we've talked all about it, and we're trying to reach a consensus. There are a number of former prosecutors, a number of former U.S. attorneys that could step in. Just to throw out some names of people that I think that are super sharp and have a good reputation in the community: Harry Rosenberg, Calvin Johnson. There's a very long list of people who can pour through this evidence and do an investigation for us. There's a lot of different approaches we could take. This body has not decided on the exact approach yet, but you can guarantee this: it will be transparent, it will be complete. And I think having a third party gets away from our opinions. We're bringing in someone else to give us an independent evaluation of what was going on.
How much is it expected to cost?
Yeah.
What is the cap on how much y'all want to pay somebody to do this?
You know, whatever it costs. If we find fault on the part of Entergy, you can rest assured that we will be asking them to pay the cost of this investigation, because no matter how you look at it, the funds that went to this crowds on demand came from them. They've said that. I can't tell you the cost of it yet. You don't know how deep it's going to have to go.
But please,
Councilmember.
have them pay for it, but not pay for it through ratepayers. They will have to pay for it from their side of the ledger. So be very clear. We're not asking, or we will not let them pass this on to ratepayers.
Let me make sure you get that on the microphone, Councilman.
Yeah.
To be clear, it will be, if it has to go past where it has to go, it will be not passed through the ratepayers. It has to come out of Entergy's side of the books. The ratepayers will not be paying for this investigation. Be very, very clear. Entergy will pay for this.
It's very important. Yes.
In terms of the comment cards, and when those are clocked in at council, will that kind of determine whether people get a chance to speak, or when those get screened for those disclosures?
Give me that question again. I don't quite follow that.
So when those comment cards come in at council, and you see those disclosures on those cards, does that kind of determine whether they're going to be able to have a chance to speak at council?
I don't think that we can stop anyone from talking. I think there are First Amendment protections. I think there are transparency issues. Even if someone is willing to admit, whatever, if they clock in their card at a certain time, then we are obligated to hear from them. But that extra block that Councilman Moreno was talking about can help describe how much weight that that comment should be given by the public and by the body.
Can I say something about
Yeah,
that?
Councilmember Palmer.
Yeah, you know, it's similar, especially like with the zoning, excuse me, WDSU. Thank you. You know, it's very similar to when you have zoning issues and you have your address on your speaker card, right? And so if there's a zoning issue, say in my district or Councilman Wynn's district, you're going to give a little bit more credence to the person because you know that they're being directly affected by that. We're not going to sit here and limit somebody's ability to speak, right? That's not constitutional. But we are going to want to make sure, again, that we're going to weigh it equitably when it comes to issues that are affecting the residents of the city.
Will you be looking into this specific instance, or will you be exploring the possibility that this Crowds on Demand has done this in other issues in the past?
I can tell you that this investigation is about the NOPS power plant. That's what we're investigating, the use of Crowds on Demand with regards to this most recent vote. Our goal moving forward is to make the City of New Orleans and the City Council of New Orleans an uncomfortable place for astroturfing and companies like Crowds on Demand. Hopefully to the tune that other municipalities will follow suit and we can put them out of business. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Councilmember Wynn. People in your district have complained about this process from the beginning, from allegations that the advisors to you all had a connection with Entergy, to a lack of availability for public hearings in New Orleans East, to where the hearings were held here downtown during the middle of the day, and then to this paid actor situation. Are you pushing for further investigation into those other avenues that your constituents have complained about?
And you know, in reference to that comment, I know for a fact that during that planning, the brainstorming and talking about the proposed plan, I know that Entergy was in the community, so I definitely want to sit down with the community groups and basically define what they mean by it, because I know that I've been part of some community groups at the New Orleans East Library. I know it's been done at Mary Queen of Vietnam and different areas in the community. And so I plan to reach out to the group to make sure that they are included in the investigation. And just like Councilman William indicated, Min Win and Vin Win was part of putting this allegation forefront for us. So we definitely want to keep them engaged and educated in the process to make sure that it's transparent and that the public have access to the investigation.
But you are looking into the possibility of advisors' roles, of locations of the council's hearings on this whenever you had the court-style hearings here downtown during the middle of the day, and they didn't like that, to even the bidding process from the very beginning.
And then definitely that will be something that I want to discuss with my colleagues on the council. And I'm sure the council is about transparency. We want to make sure that the people are involved in the process. So I really believe that moving forward, this allegation will have a thorough investigation, that the people will know all the steps that the council will be taking in reference to this allegation.
And one quick other question for all of the members. We've talked a lot about the comment cards and people disclosing their affiliations or their payments by companies. Are any of you receiving any kind of business deals or anything other than your regulatory business with Entergy, and have you received any campaign donations from that?
Absolutely not.
Not 10, not 2 cents.
I'll let everybody get on the
I
mic.
have not. Absolutely not.
No.
You need that on the mic?
Yeah. You want to speak on the mic?
Not 10, not 2 cents.
No.
Yes.
And for the record, anybody, you all are investigators, you can go to our campaign
Yeah,
finance
right.
reports, you can see all that.
Right. That's been tossed out there a lot.
But, you know, but there have been allegations of that throughout this process, and people can say anything when they're at a microphone. And it needs to be checked, it needs to be investigated, so you can know what facts are facts and what is fiction. I think Kevin Linton from the paper, the first time I talked to him, he said that my first conversation with Charles Rice of E&O was a belligerent and loud conversation. He's right, but I was the one that was belligerent and loud because I was offended. I was a person who put 2 years into this process, right? And with the use of this Crowds on Demand, it perverted 2 years of work, not just by the last council, but by the staffs of the last council, but by a lot of very hardworking people who were doing meetings throughout the community. There's a lot of work that went into that. And as you just said, everything's in question. Councilmember Moreno.
To your question, that's why it's so important to have this independent third-party investigation, so that we are removed from the process, so that no one can say when this report is final that any one of us were influenced one way or another. So when that report is released, all of the evidence is attached to that report for the public to review as well, so that they can see it for themselves. Once again, the more sunlight we add to this, the better that it is for all of us.
Anyone else want to close the doors?
Yeah.
Any other questions before we wrap up? Everyone wish Jessica Williams a happy birthday.
I know,
Right.
right?
Thank you.